Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show we're talking about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Lethal Weapon. A great season finale. A lot of interesting things went down this episode, so let's break it all down. First and foremost, obviously you have everything that's going on with Cole. You know, it's like, hey, it's one thing that Andrew and Natalie are getting married. Obviously, he's trying to pretend like he's okay when in actuality, he isn't. But then on top of all that, turns out, you know, Andrew got this Doctors Without Borders thing going on, and he knows that that's something Natalie cares about. So they will be leaving. He's like, well, this past, time I've spent back here with you guys and everything has prepared me to look after Maya, and it's like she would be going with us. And it's like, oh, this is a grand experience. The fact of the matter is, international schools, friends, like she'd be traveling all the world just like you and your mom did. And Cole, tries to, when it comes to everything, when it comes to what he kind of wants, he's like, no, this is good. And it's like, I'm glad for you and Andrew, and it's going to be an experience for Maya. Like, he doesn't want to tell, because I think for him, he feels like it's selfish if he says like, no, this is what I really want, because it's like, for him, I guess it's like, after not being in their lives for so long, it's like, who am I to really dictate things? It's like, I have no right, it's like, I can't impede on your happiness. And that's kind of sad, because I think even on some level, it bothers Cole too, because it's like, I mean, when he was her age, like, he kind of was a little contentful towards his mom to a certain extent, because it's like his entire life got uprooted. He'd always be moving. Anytime he settled into one place, they'd just be moving to the next, and being away from her for a year after finally getting back, because for him, it's like, he even says it later on, and I thought it was kind of a beautiful sentiment. Like, basically, the things that scare us are good things. Like, in this case, like, coming back, being with Maya and Natalie again was a scary thing, but it was a good thing, because for him, it's like, this has been the best year of his life. And it's just, and a sad thing, this is all happening, while everything is going down with him and Roger. So the foundation that he's basically built up is crumbled underneath him. And so he starts thinking about working with Barnes again, all the while Roger's still kind of pissed at him. And then lo and behold, the FBI shows up. It's Lola. I'm going to butcher her last name, because I always forget. I know it's something with a G, but it's just interesting, because she was in this season of Ray Donovan. So I was like, hey, that's so cool. But essentially, they're coming after Roger to get to Cole, to get to Barnes. So I was like, okay. Because usually they handle what I would assume, more domestic stuff. So I was like, okay, Barnes must be doing a lot of stuff off books. I was like, maybe he's crossed the line doing some CIA stuff. It turns out, no. Barnes actually himself is not with the CIA. He left like 6 months ago, right around the time Cole, came back to do this whole police thing. So it's like, okay. So, which is interesting, which means like when Cole met up with him back then, like earlier in the season, Barnes was already not with the CIA at that point in time. So like, I knew he was kind of a shady dude, but I didn't realize he was that shady, essentially, because it turns out he's also connected to Andrew, because there was that cartel assassin hitman after Andrew. And the reason why, I guess, is because we find out that basically Barnes was using that to smuggle, drugs and guns, and and that made me wonder, like, it didn't come up, but whether that was what motivated Andrew to do the whole Doctors Without Borders, because it's like, hey, I'm helping out the CIA, because for him, he always felt intimidated by Cole, but now it's like in his own mind, it's like, oh, he had got drunk at this bachelor party and confessed it, which I love. Cole is like, oh man, I've never been to a bachelor party. Andrew's like, you want to come? What? Really? Because, Cole wanted to, catch, up with, keep an eye on Andrew. And I love during that struggle during the bathroom, he kept dropping his tooth first in the toilet and then picked it up the floor, and then it finally landed in a urinal and went down a drain. I was like, poor bastard. I did not realize you went through that much to keep your tooth. I was almost about to say, please don't tell me he's going to pick it out the toilet, like the first toilet, and then, from the stall, and try to put it back in his mouth. I was like, please tell me you're not going to do that. But nevertheless, but I'm wondering, is that the real reason why he suggested the whole? Because it almost seemed like it came out of nowhere. Not unless he had said that. I mean, to be fair, who's to say like this whole thing's between him and Barnes? wasn't set up ahead of time. So I feel like that's probably the main motivation of why he kind of just dropped that on Natalie, and then suddenly Natalie drops that on Cole like that. That's my thought process behind it. So I don't know. Maybe he was doing the Doctors Without Borders thing, and then Barnes found out. Like, maybe that's kind of why this all kind of comes together, because it's like he just happens to meet up with Cole again, and then finds out, well, oh, there's Natalie, and then there's this guy in Natalie's life. Andrew found out all that stuff about him being a doctor and using that to his advantage. Like, it makes me think maybe that was all set up ahead of time. But I'm going into a whole tangent about something that's not too necessarily important, but it's just kind of interesting to me, because it just shows you what level of, was Barnes planning this entire time? Was it just kind of a last minute decision? Like, what was going on? Because at first, like, when it came out that he was a bad guy the entire time, I was like, okay, so he wanted that cartel dude's money. Is that why he wanted Cole to kidnap him and keep him alive? It's like, no, they were coming after him because I guess, I was thinking at the time when we were watching it that, like, Barnes had sent him there to kind of set this whole situation up to get the money in the end. I thought maybe that's what it was, but it's like, no, I think the cartel assassin was sent there because they were trying to cut Barnes out of it, and so they were trying to get rid of Andrew to cut, you know, Barnes' pipeline of, like, what he's using for that, because maybe he backed out of some deal with the cartel or something, whatever the case may be. And the sad thing is, like, everyone kind of got caught up in the middle. It's sad because when Cole actually does come to tell Roger the truth, it turns out, lo and behold, hey, Roger's got a wire on, and that's got to be a little disheartening, because it's like, yeah, the one time I decided to open up to you, you're actually wearing a wire, which Roger didn't want to do it, but, you know, he did try to cover up when Cole was like, hey, I got to tell you something. He's like, and patting on his chest, and just like, oh, the fact is I got to tell you something too, but, you know, so it was kind of interesting when it turns out that the people that Cole was spotting were FBI agents. I guess they were all keeping an eye on Andrew because they knew. Well, it might have just been them following Cole in general, but it might have also, well, I assume so. Well, man, I think they did, yeah, because they ended up showing Cole the file, so they knew that Andrew was being used to smuggle guns and stuff too. So I guess it was kind of like a 2-for-1, because it was like, hey, we got an eye on both of you. So, but kind of showing you how far, you know, Barnes had fallen into. It's like, oh, I'm going to kidnap Natalie and use her as leverage for you to give me the 10 million, or I'm gonna kill her, essentially. And it's like, geez. I also love the fact is that, like, you know, when the FBI was, you know, tearing, you know, the precinct apart and everything, and then, like, Bailey's like, I hope they don't check my computer. The fact of the matter is, I've done a lot of, you know, off-the-book stuff for everyone lately. And then Avery's like, don't tell me that, Bailey. She's like, oh, come on, you already know all that. He's like, wait, are you wearing a wire? She's like, are you wearing a wire? It's just kind of them turning against each other. And Louisa being like, I don't really know you guys, but you don't really know what I'm capable of. And it's like, and even, you know, Avery was even shocked too, because, like, the fact is that Roger would wear a wire speaks volumes, because he's like, if you told me that, I would have never believed you that Roger Murtaugh wore a wire to bring down his partner. But in the long run, you know, like, Roger did feel bad about it, but it's just because it's like his family was threatened. The fact of the matter is, it's like he was already kind of pissed at Cole, so he wasn't in the right state of mind. But Cole didn't hold it against him, because it's like, when you look in the mirror, you should see a good cop, because you did the right thing. You honored the badge by doing that. And, you know, for him, it's like, oh, and you also made a rookie move. You shouldn't have worn a wire on your chest. And kind of looks down, and Roger's like, but doesn't that cause chafing? I swear I've watched something, I don't remember, where there's, like, specific wires made specifically for that. I could have sworn I remember a TV show making a point to kind of reference that in that area, so that's interesting. I also love that Roger tried to have phone sex with Trish, and she's kind of like saying this stuff, and he's like, oh, maybe you're coming down with something. She's like, Roger, I'm trying to have sexy time with you. He's like, oh, over the phone. And then, like, the FBI shows up. He's like, could you give me 10 minutes? I love you could hear her over the phone be like, are we doing this whole phone sex thing or what? I loved it. But I loved a lot of things coming together in this episode. Like, the fact is that Louisa, Bailey, and Scorsese helping them get to 10 million, because in a situation like this, Roger is like, that's why it's good to have friends. And even Avery stopped by and be like, oh man, you know, that 10 million that they're doing a photo op for is in this exact location. I also love how they snuck past it by Monty. It's like a lot of stuff gets snuck by, past Monty. I love that it's just like a little thing here adding in there, just and Scorsese going through the ceiling and stuff like that. And even Louisa at the end being like, are we still cops, Bailey? But I was actually surprised that Barnes outright shot Roger just to keep them from following him. Then it's like the whole Natalie strapped to a chair situation, and that touching moment between Roger and Trish, like he doesn't want to let her know anything's really going down, but he's like, the fact of the matter is, obviously, like everything we've been through, he's like, I don't think I deserved you, but the fact is, you and the kids have made me so happy, and the fact is that he's like, you know, if I died today, I die happy, man, you know, and it's like, nothing's wrong, and I love you, and it's just like, and I think that in itself spoke volumes to both Natalie and, you know, Cole in that moment, them looking at each other. And then it's just kind of like, okay, so what are we going to do? The bomb is ticking down. The moment you leave that plate, it's going to go boom. Buy yourself a few seconds. Literally jumping out the window like that, I think is cool. And I don't know if this is just me looking at it like that. It looked like that was the case, but them also jumping, and it looks like the explosion was able to propel them closer to the crane nearby. That was pretty badass, you know? It's like, don't ever let go. And she's like, I won't. It's kind of crazy, Natalie showing up at a wedding, covered in blood, missing shoes. And it's just kind of like, I don't know, it was just kind of interesting. I was like, okay, so what is she going to do in the end? And it ends up seeming like she doesn't marry Andrew, and it's just kind of, you kind of feel bad for the bastard, but at the same time, it's like, oh, it's kind of interesting because it ends up working out too, because it's like, hey, lo and behold, Cole's dream ended up coming true. That was very foreshadowing that things would just come in. I mean, obviously it didn't go exactly the way Cole's dream was, but the fact is that he's kind of reunited. It's like him, Maya, and Natalie. It's just a good thing that everything worked out. Roger, I wasn't sure what they were going to do with that. You know, this being like Damon Wayans' like last episode, and you know, I wasn't sure like what was going to go down. So, you know, I was like, are they going to kind of do like a similar thing to Riggs? That'd be kind of interesting if that's what the route they were going. But it's like, no, lo and behold, got Barnes on recording saying all the stuff that he said. So, but it's like, hey, you know, and I love Cole being like, hey guys, you know, 2 weeks later, he shows up at the get together and everything, and then, you know, Cole is like, yeah, thanks guys for the money. Luis and Scorsese's like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, man. And Bailey's just like, welcome to the family. And then I love that, you know, it's like, nah, like the old me, you know, when he was talking to Roger, it's like, I would have gone after Barnes in Ecuador, but me, I'm a family man now, and here we are, and the fact is that I'm not gonna do that. And so Roger's like, yeah, I mean, so what if Barnes got away? And they're just like, ha ha ha. And then it turns out both of them book a flight, the same flight, to go to Ecuador, because neither one of them is willing to let Barnes go away. Ended up bringing their significant others, Natalie and Trish, and they're just like, oh boy, there's more to this, isn't it? It's just, you just both happened to book a flight to Ecuador. It's like, because it wasn't even, I was wondering, I was like, I figured they would be on the same flight. I'm like, oh, they planned this. It's like, no, they didn't. They were just going to go after him respectively on their own, and just lo and behold, hey, we're here. And also love them going back and forth, arguing about like leg space and stuff. He's like, but you literally said you owed me because I took a bullet for you. He's like, no, I meant that, you know, figuratively. I didn't mean literally. It's like, no, because if we switch seats, what about my leg room? And them going back and forth. So I think it was a very nice way to wrap up the season. Also with, you know, this whole Barnes situation too. Like it's kind of, it all kind of fits together with the closing chapter of Cole's past life and with his new life. So from what I'm reading a little bit online, it doesn't seem like it's clear whether or not the show is coming back for a fourth season, which I'm really hoping that it does. But it's interesting because the way they set this up, you can definitely tell like, like there's room for this just to be the finale. But for right now, what I'm reading, it doesn't seem like it's clear. Once again, like this is Damon Wayans' like last episode. So, because I remember there being talk about like they were going to shift him out for a different partner for Cole in particular. You know, maybe Cole comes back, you know, but maybe they make some excuse of like, oh, maybe Roger loved it so much in Ecuador after they deal with the whole Barnes situation, or maybe they never caught up to Barnes and they just had their vacation and stuff like that. And Roger just, you know, off screen has his, you know, puts in his 2 weeks or, you know, his retirement essentially, you know. So I'm curious to see, like, they could end up doing something depressing, like, hey, come back, and it's just depressing, kind of like they did from season 2 to season 3. We could do something depressing like that, but I would hope they wouldn't. I think one blow like that's enough. Don't need two, but I thought the whole point was going to be like Cole was going to get a new partner that's going to be a bit of a firecracker, essentially. What, like, kind of like representing the crazy, because Cole's not really even though he's kind of the crazy, he's not the crazy like Riggs was. So I think there was talk about another partner coming in to be that. So I personally think that would be interesting, because it'd be like, oh yeah, it's no longer about Riggs and Murtaugh, it's about Cole and whoever his new partner is potentially. Like I said, that depends on whether the show comes back for a fourth season. I really hope so, because it'd be interesting to see what they would do with it. Like I said, where they'd kind of pick things up if it came back. Also, like I said, it depends. They could make it so like Barnes is the main antagonist of it, you know. I mean, because I feel like they could also probably, I don't know if they're going to directly do this, but they could potentially do a lot more like, I don't know, maybe other changes with the cast and stuff like that. I don't know. You know, see, you know, Cole balance that, bring that aspect of him kind of being the Roger of the situation with a little bit of, you know, Riggs mixed in of like, oh, the family man, Roger, but, you know, the ex-CIA agent aspect, obviously, like, you know, Riggs was ex-Navy SEAL, but you get that whole comparison, so. Because there's also a lot more room to kind of build out a lot of other stuff, too, like, you know, just be an opportunity to kind of continue building out your other characters, like Louisa, we got introduced to her this season, but we really didn't get that much time with her, so, you know, especially because she made a point of like, yeah, you guys don't know what I'm capable of, and it's like, I think that kind of speaks volume in itself, like what that's potentially going to be. Like I said, we'll see ultimately, you know, what ends up happening with everything. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.